All right, you guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is a solo leg day. This is gonna be my hamstring dominant day. As of my programming for my legs, I'm a little bit more hamstring dominant than I am quads, so even on my hamstring dominant day that I determined by the big movement that I have for today, which is going to be a hinge, I still have a fair amount of quad work getting done, because for me, that's really what I need to work on and what I need to keep on me as I'm prepping. As of right now, I'm 19 weeks out as of this recording. By the time that it comes out, it'll be a little bit further along. But for right now, my main goal is to try and get in, do the work, get the quality, not waste time on any extras that I would do typically in the off season, because legs is absolutely my favorite thing to train. Right now, the focus is to not crush myself as much as I usually would, because I will if I have the tools. So right now, as resources are becoming a little bit lower and we're pushing pretty hard on this prep, you're gonna have to just focus in, head down, go to it, get it done, hit my numbers, get out. Oh! 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 I don't know how much I like that creaking in there. Yikes. Might have abused this thing a little too much in my time.
You bent it with a gym pin.
Yeah, me and my gym pin creating problems. So, you didn't catch the first set, but that was the second set and the last set that I'm doing on this. I started with all mid-ranging on this. Prime, I can change the loading settings. So, this second set that you just saw, I had on all length and loaded. So at the very bottom, where I'm trying to get the most benefit out of this anyway, that's where I'm getting the most loading. Also helps me to extend the set. So it's not so much about me having the loading in the lengthen portion as much as it is allowing me to get into the shortened position for more total reps, because all the hard part is gonna be where I'm strongest, and then where I'm going to fail on every single set that I do this is gonna be easier for me to get there. So that's the real point. If you have a prime adductor like this, I'd recommend you try setting it up that way with your sets. First set out of 2, keeping these a little bit higher rep target than I typically would on a hinge, for me at least, so I kind of like to push it. But I've only just recently reintroduced these about 5 weeks ago, I think, and so I'm slowly ramping my way back up with them, trying to get my feet under me again, figure out how to do this properly. Coming along. Adding a couple reps here, a couple pounds there. It's getting there. We'll see if 6 plates will actually happen as my skill and strength goes up. Then the pattern from having it reintroduced, all my resources for work go down through prep. We'll find out. As cardio is fairly high at the moment, food is fairly low, so it doesn't really mean much, but for reference, right now at 19 weeks out, I'm doing 45 minutes of cardio, 6 days a week. Steps are at 10K. That's what I enforced myself to, but officially it has to be above 7. And Training day food is up at 2,700, and then non-training day is about 23. So, and right now I weigh about 250. So it gives a little bit of reference for where we're at and what I've got to work with right now, especially for the weights that I would usually like to move on big movements. I am definitely trying to pull it in as quickly as I can, because the last 2 preps, I ended up having to cut them because it was 10 weeks out-ish, where I still had some work to do. But having to pull that trigger and really step down on the accelerator, my body didn't have it anymore. And I had other stressors in my life that kind of overwhelmed the whole process. And then it ended up being, tried to drown it out with my training, push it way too far. That stress overwhelmed things, and then it was just a snowball that rolled downhill. So this time around, I'm taking it a little bit more slowly, being a bit more careful with what I'm doing, especially on the gym floor, because I know that I can generate such a huge output total that on any one day that I could bury myself extremely quickly if I'm not careful. And that, done at any point in this process, could keep me out of the game making the progress I should be making on the scales and visuals for maybe even weeks if I really blow myself out all at once. So that's not really something that I can risk. Deadlifting, hinge and Q. Something that'll help probably a lot of people, because you might feel as if when you set up on the bar, your strongest position is with your feet fairly wide. I mean, cue in any strongman deadlifting ever here, and then usually the justification for doing it that way is because of people that are built that way do deadlift like that, and they leverage themselves well for it. You're probably not 6'5" Brian Shaw and all of the rest of the top echelon strongmen that literally have to go here to deadlift the bar. Okay? Your strongest position is most often not going to be out here. If you're somebody that ends up preferring a wider stance and you're deadlifting purely for the sake of deadlifting, or it's powerlifting, or it's strength training, you might as well just do a sumo. Okay? But if you're actually trying to do a conventional type pull, an RDL, a stiff leg, or anything that's within that family, your best bet is going to be directly underneath you. And so, for me, where I place my feet, I think about it this way. If I were to do a vertical jump test, like you're in collegiate sports, and you do the run up the single step to vertical jump to try and test it and hit off the top marker that you can possibly get to, where you would go if you were to do like a quick run up and jump, that natural place where your feet want to go underneath you is going to be your power position. And so that when I go up for a jump, I wouldn't go here, because I'm going to go like that. It's not going to do me any good. Have my feet directly underneath me with all my joints stacked, I'm going to have the most ability to create torque here at all the joints that are going to help me get there. Okay? And that's exactly what you're trying to do with the deadlift. You're trying to leverage everything that you have to be able to do it. Different kinds of hinges are going to be a little bit different with what you're trying to emphasize and de-emphasize, like knee travel, like we're doing with a stiff. So when I set up, get myself to the bar, put my feet underneath me, and then before I do any other part of my setup, I shift my hips back, and then I do just a little bit of a shift forward, kicking my hips up. And this here tells me whether or not I can stand up to this top position as if I was going to take off. I get to here, I can get into full hip extension, I can keep my rib cage packed under me like I will be in the top of a deadlift. And here, I can still keep my entire foot planted into the ground. I'm not having myself fall into like extra pronated position. My knees aren't going together, they're not dumping out. My toes in the center aren't pulling up. If I step back, go here, get my feet under me. There, I know I had it. And now, all I gotta do, set up my arms, tuck my rib cage down, hinge back as far as I can, and then bend my knees only as much as I need to get set up on the bar, and then pull. Is that if you do have a wider stance, a common movement fault that you will see in yourself or other people is that once you get the bar off the floor and it starts getting to about mid-shin or the knee, you get a lot of this stuff. You get a lot of shaking happening. That's not a nervous system thing. That's not any fancy whatever. That's going to be really hard for you to explain. It's really just a leveraging error. It's an issue with how you're stacking up, where you're trying to figure out how best to leverage and position all of these joints from the foot, ankle, knee, and hip so that you can get this to overcome the hardest point of torque for where the ankle, the knee bend, and the hip bend is. And so at about here, as you're pulling, this is about what? Almost a 90-degree angle. And this is about what? A 90-degree angle. And this, your hip crease, is about what? A 90-degree angle. This is going to be the hardest point for you to overcome on a conventional deadlift, okay? Getting it off the floor isn't so bad. Getting it past mid-shin and over the knee is tough. And so, if you have it too wide, your body's trying to figure out how it wants to move everything, whether or not you're shooting your knees forward or backward, you're moving your feet out like this in a supination and pronation, you're dumping your knees into each other, or they're trying to extend and flex a lot. That's really what this like uncontrollable shaking is. And so it's trying to go and move in every single dimension it can to try and find its best leverage point to just get you right past it so you can stand. That is a way that you know, once you get to a high enough weight that it matters, that stance is not working for you. Bring it in and then follow all the cues and tips that I just placed in the video before, and you'll find it. I'm staying a little bit shy of a true technical failure on these, muscular failure, because I'm still reintroducing these. I'm trying to watch out for fatigue. Hinges will build the most amount of fatigue on 90% of individuals that do them as relative to any other big movement. Going overboard with these, easy recipe for just getting smashed and not having any ability to recover. So I need to take them slow, build them up reliably, a little bit of weight by a little bit of weight, a couple of reps by a couple of reps, and just be patient. Going too quickly on this, ramping up to true failures is gonna end up, one, ingraining a pattern that I don't want, because I had the skill out for a long time. I don't want to teach myself again how to do it badly by ingraining bad, technically faulty reps, just so I can hit failure, where those failure points will also be a detriment because I won't be able to recover very well. Feeling it out little by little. I would of course like to just hop out all the plates on that I can and then go, but for this is actually kind of a tough one on the knees sometimes, because you end up in the very bottom the way I set it up, where you at a 90-degree angle at the knee, and then you don't have a lot of dorsiflexion at the ankle. Your knee doesn't fall over the ankle very much at all, which is part of the nice features about it, partially because it's not a range of motion issue for most people to be able to get into the bottom. But it does make it difficult, because at this angle, there's a lot of torque that you have to overcome directly at the knee. And without the extra knee travel over the ankle, that your ankle actually being back here, you don't have a lot of compressive forces happening in here, quite as much as you have a dislocative force that goes through the knee. And so as you're trying to press through and move the platform, you have a little bit possibility and where I get it sometimes, a little bit of lateral medial knee pain because I'm trying to like press against as much of this load as I can, get it moving, but it's already at a very tough point for the relative amount of torque that you have to build. So I have to be careful with my warm-ups, take it slow, make sure my knees feel fine. All right. Because all the plates in the gym isn't enough. Half joking. I like using these because the top half of the range of motion on this ends up getting really pretty light. I don't like it to have as extreme of a drop off as it actually ends up getting. So I will end up failing at the same rep count with or without the bands, but I'll end up getting more out of the same set using the bands than I do without it, because it doesn't have as sheer of a drop off and I'm not pretty much unloaded for the second half of the movement. So, although it does make getting it off as the first rep a lot harder, which is definitely a downside. So we'll probably just stick to 13 today, as long as this last warm-up goes well. One down. Gotta love it.
What?
All right, so just before this, I had my hinge, which is a stiff leg, then into a Rogers bilateral hip press banded, and then walking lunge, and into this. And so I do the walking lunge and this because my legs can tolerate a whole lot more for loading on walking lunges than my upper body can and my cardio can. So as you see in the video, me carrying the 140s, I don't know how many more steps I could get with them. Probably a good bit. I don't want to venture a guess. But my cardio and my ability to hold the grip on the dumbbells and coordinate them as they move and as I move them through space, like the amount of effort has to go into it just for the stamina to keep up, to get more out of it so I can actually fatigue my legs fully, ends up being a losing proposition, where this is going to be a very, very similar movement. It's not going to be as functionally based. It's not going to be a full gait cycle pattern like a walking lunge is, but it has the same start and end points for the actual main working muscle at the time, which is going to be the front quad. So doing this directly afterwards, that ends up being a good heavy output movement that I follow up to fill the gaps with this, because it's pretty much identical in when it's loading, but I can manipulate the actual loading curve where I can't with dumbbells, and then I don't have my grip and my upper body stamina and my cardio as a limitation where the walking lunges do. And so this covers that gap that'll inevitably be left by that. And to do so, that is a more mid-range loaded movement. It has to be. This, because it's prime, I can load it so that this one is actually on setting 4 right now, which means it's going to be at the mid-range to the end of the range of motion where I'm giving the most tension. And so that offloads me in the very bottom, and it makes it harder as it comes up, which is going to be pretty similar to what it would be if it were banded. And in my opinion, that is preferential for a leg press. I tend to like it a little bit better. I get a little bit more out of it. Ends up making sense. You're going to be stronger as your knee becomes more straight, so you might as well load more into that position anyway. Makes sense to me.
that one, folks.
Quick tip here. This has been said and said again and said too many times to count now, but it needs to be repeated as many times as it can get heard. Movements like this that are single joint, especially leg extensions and ham curls, you don't just set up in here the way that this kind of tells you to set up. If you set up the way it tells you to, you sit straight on here, your knee turns out like this, and you extend this way. That is not how your knee joint hinges, okay? Out at this angle, all of this torque is getting placed through the medial center of the knee here. Not good for you. So, you don't just set up however it is that the machine tells you to. You want to align the joints to the way they're actually supposed to move. This arm points out this way. And so I don't sit here to then try to track here. I turn myself, and I turn my leg. So here, I align my femur so that from my hip to my knee to the direction that this moves in, where that pole is going straight forward, is all in one straight line. It is all turn here, so you can actually move in alignment with the real hinge. You know Cam's here when every song is Meek Mill. Should ask him what his music taste is. Wonder if he just answers Meek Mill. Here's the secret to looking big in Revive Gym. That mirror. Look at that. Instantly double the size. All right guys, so that's it for this hinge dominant leg day at exactly 19 weeks out as of this recording. As you can tell, I'm pretty spent. Volume isn't quite as high as actually it typically is, but making those reductions as needed so I can continue forward and not get too smashed by every leg session I do, since I run on a 2-on 1-off rotation, so they come around pretty frequently. So here we are, this point out from show, still putting in the work, trying to keep on escalating on the work totals as much as I can without having to make too many drawbacks. Get things consistent, keep pushing on baselines that'll actually hold me through on movements I can keep and maintain throughout this whole period. And keep blasting it through to the end. So, that's it for this one, guys. If you like the video, like the video. If you like the video, share the video with anybody you think that might enjoy it. Make sure to subscribe. If you really like the video, do me a favor and go post it on your social media and try to get other people to watch. I really enjoy making these videos. Really hope you guys like watching them. So stay tuned for more.